Estás a punto de ser expuesto a recibir alto contenido de ruido. Los efectos secundarios son responsabilidad de quien lo escucha. Efecto ruido blanco.
Hola. Oigan, pues yo emocionadísima porque fíjense que desde hace unos días que supe de la posibilidad de poder llevar a cabo la entrevista que les vamos a presentar a continuación, mi vida ha sido un carrusel bastante de subidas y bajadas y de vueltos y revueltos de emociones, porque esta es una de las entrevistas a las que más le he traído ganas por años, y finalmente hoy se me hizo poder tener una plática con Dave Grohl. Y me encanta porque además esta plática, por más que no estamos físicamente, sí es esta oportunidad que tienes de verte, entonces puedes ir viendo las reacciones que tiene cuando le vas comentando, preguntando cosas, y él siendo una persona que es tan buen platicador, ya verán ustedes. Quiero decirles que es un reto cuando tienes una persona así para entrevistar, porque su carrera de 25 años con los Foo Fighters, más lo que obviamente había hecho con Nirvana y anterior, da para una lista de preguntas interminable. Y créanme que de verdad tengo una lista de más de 70 preguntas que me hubiera encantado hacerle y que fui filtrando hasta que apenas ayer logré cerrar unas 20, muy consciente de que no me iba a dar tiempo de hacer todas porque es muy corto el tiempo y él, como les reitero, platica muy sabroso. Entonces, pues logrando tener una concisa participación con algunas respuestas que creo que son como muy enriquecedoras y además muy puntuales, porque hay muchísimas cosas de qué platicar. Quiero compartirles mi alegría y mi emoción con el resultado de la plática que van a ver a continuación por parte de Lucila, de The Basement y por supuesto de Ruido Blanco, y que ustedes la disfruten tanto como yo. Así es que los dejo con esta plática con el rey del rock, Dave Grohl.
¡Hey!
Dave!
Hi.
Exciting. You don't have any idea how long I have waited to have this talk. I have interviewed David Bowie, Robert Smith, U2, the Rolling Stones, and you were in my bucket list. So I feel very lucky today, and I thank you for your time.
I feel lucky too. I'm glad that I'm on your bucket list. That's very exciting. It's flattering.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I consider you a truly survivor of the Generation X and also the grunge movement, and now a king of rock and roll. You are. And are you ready for October 30? Because this induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I know you've inducted Rush, and you're a fan of Neil, drums, but who do you love to induct you to the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, you know, there's no guarantee that we're going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there are so many artists that I think deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. You know, there's a long list of people. It's a funny thing because, you know, it's exciting to think about, but it's an honor to be, you know, to be considered, right? But so we were talking about this the other day, and it's a funny question, like who should do it? I thought that one of the people that inspired me to start the Foo Fighters was the drummer of the Police, Stuart Copeland, because Stuart Copeland had this side project. While he was in the Police, he had this side project called Clark Kent, and nobody knew it was him. He didn't put his name on the record. And that's how I started the Foo Fighters. When I recorded all the Foo Fighters music in the beginning, I didn't want to say like Dave Grohl solo project. So I called it Foo Fighters because I didn't want people to know it was me in the beginning. So I thought, well, that makes sense. Stuart Copeland, he inspired me to do that. But then Pat Smear, he said, no, it should be your mother. I was like, what? He goes, she's your biggest fan. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't be here. And she's inspired me my whole life. He's like, maybe it should be your mother. I don't know. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I don't know. Who knows? It's fun to think about.
Yes, how exciting. So, I heard the cover you recently made of the Bee Gees and found out about your dog named BG. But does the first song you wrote is about that dog particularly?
Well, yes. I mean, when I was maybe, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old, both of my parents were musicians. So my father, he was a classically trained flautist. He played in orchestras and he was brilliant. Never professional, but he was fucking amazing. Perfect pitch and just a brilliant man. My mother, she sang in a cappella singing groups in the 50s. She had a beautiful voice. And so there's DNA, it's in here, it's in here. And there was an old guitar in the house that my mother bought for my father, but he never learned to play it. It was like a big flamenco guitar. It was a fucking a nylon string acoustic guitar. And one day I just picked it up and I started playing Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. I started playing da, 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 and I realized oh, I can hear something and then I can just do it. I don't need a teacher. I can just fucking learn it. So then I started writing songs by myself. I was listening to Beatles records and classic rock records and things. And I thought, well, I could write a song. I could do this and I can do this. So, but I didn't know what to write about. So I wrote about my dog. My first love, my dog.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you still have your records? I mean, what was the first record that you bought? And
The first
did you
record
still
that
have
I-
the records?
Well, so my mother was a school teacher, and she's my parents divorced when I was 6 or 7. So my mother raised my sister and I, and as school teachers don't make any fucking money. We had no fucking money. The lights would turn off sometimes, the heat would turn off sometimes, sometimes there's no food and shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have a record player. My mother, on the weekends, she would take the record player from her classroom and she'd bring it home.
Wow.
And then all weekend we would listen to records, but we didn't have any records. So she would take the record player home, and then we'd go to the drugstore and buy records at the drugstore. And the first record I bought actually is fucking, hold on, it's here.
Wow.
Let's see if I can find it. Wait, hold on. Fuck.
Cool. Yes.
Shit, where is it? Fuck, I can't find it. Anyway, it was this record that it was a compilation record, and it was Casey and the Sunshine Band,
Wow.
That's the way, I like it. But the one song that I really loved was Frankenstein by Edgar Winter. So it was a rock song, but it was an instrumental. There was no vocals. So it was that song that went, and there was something about the composition with no vocals, just instrumental, that I could see it in my head. So there's this thing called synesthesia where you can see music, right? So I started seeing it in shapes in my head, like Legos, when you build something like this.
Or Tetris. Uh-huh.
And so so whenever I heard an instrument, the notes they built like shapes, and the arrangement was almost like sculpture. It had this shape like this. And that's when I first started thinking about composition and arrangement. And I would pick up the old guitar and write riffs, just in shapes. So that was and then it was Beatles records and, and comedy records. I loved the Beatles, and then I loved Steve Martin. I loved comedy records, and I loved rock and roll. And so I think that's the Foo Fighters, really, is exactly what it is.
But how is it important to you, for you, that your fans could still have the opportunity to have their CDs on physical?
Yeah, I mean, so I have 3 daughters, a 15-year-old, 12-year-old, and 6-year-old. And I remember the first time I brought a record home, my daughter, Violet, she was maybe 5 years old, 6 years old. She's like, what is that? And I said, well, it's a record. That's how we used to listen to music. She said, what? And so I got the record player, put it in her room. I said, okay, you do this, put it on like this, put the needle on. And she thought it was a toy, but she was like, wow, And I gave her my Beatles records. Then I walked out of the room. Maybe like an hour later, I come back in and she's sitting on her floor with all the Beatles records. And she's like looking at the covers and she's reading the words and she's flipping the record and doing it exactly the same as you did it and I did it when we were fucking kids, right?
Yes, yes.
Because that experience, because it's tangible, you can touch, it becomes almost a more emotional experience, more aesthetic, because you're in the moment and it's real. You're fucking touching it, you know? So I still think it's important to have that tangible connection to music. Like music is a sound and music is ethereal and music is emotional, but there's something about like holding it in your fucking hands that makes you think like, oh, this is real. So, and records are cool, man. Like records are fucking, I remember when Nirvana, when we made Nevermind, that was right when CDs were becoming popular, like 1980 or 1990, 91. And so most people, when you make artwork for a record, it's like, yeah, you know, it's 12 by 12. You have this. Well, now CDs, it's like, whoop, and it's like this big. And then there's a little fucking warning on it, whatever, you know. And I remember as we were making the artwork, the people at the record company were like, this sucks. Like the artwork is going like this, it's shrinking. We put so much thought and effort into making a beautiful piece of art, and now it's like this. And then, but now it's like this. It's like right there on your fucking, and so, but I think that having something in your hands is much more, it's romantic, it's beautiful.
I agree. So I know the Beatles are the band that truly inspired you, but if you have to pick one Beatle, and please.
Okay, so listen, I think that if you ask, okay, say you meet someone and you go on a date, right? You go to a restaurant and you sit down and you want to know what kind of person this is. Like you want to know like who this is. Ask them, who's your favorite Beatle? Because it's a psychological fucking personality test. Which people do you connect to? You relate to, right? Yes. Is it Paul? Paul's like, yeah, you know, Paul fucking he lives life like this, you know. Is it John? John is he's complicated, you know. He's angry and he's beautiful and he's romantic, but he's like complicated, you know. Then George Harrison, he has this like spiritual, beautiful side to him, right? And then there's Ringo. Ringo's, I don't know how to describe Ringo. Ringo to me is just like, he's joy, you know, he's just a beautiful, joyful person. So sometimes I feel like Paul. Sometimes I feel like John. Sometimes I feel like George. Sometimes I am fucking Ringo, you know?
You're the best.
You do this. And so like, it's hard to pick one, but
yes, I agree.
So it's an impossible question.
Okay, Dave, listen to this. Tell me please the story of your beautiful Gibson blue guitar. I would say it's as iconic as you, but does she have a name? I think it's a she, but you tell me.
Okay, so those guitars, all right, years ago, 30 fucking years ago, 25 years ago, I walked into a guitar store and I thought like, I'm gonna buy a nice guitar. I wanted a older guitar, I wanted a hollow body so that I could sit on the couch and play it and make sound. I'm looking at all of these different guitars and then I see this one guitar that has a different headstock on it, this right here. Because usually they look like that, right? And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. I didn't know what it was. I just thought, oh, that looks really nice. So I buy it. And then it says Trini Lopez on it, right? And I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I didn't know anything about Trini Lopez. So I take it home, I start playing it, and it sounds really good. Then I plug it into an amp, and I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. It was this one guitar, it's a red one. And then I used it, so I use it on every fucking Foo Fighters record, same guitar, every record. So then Gibson, and it's like, I don't know anything technical about equipment. I don't fucking care. Like you could hand me a fucking ukulele and I'm like, rah, rah, rah. And with drums, it's like, I don't care. It could be a toy drum set. It could be a fucking huge drum set. I don't care. So the Gibson people, they come to me and they say like, we want to do a signature guitar. And I'm like, I only like one guitar, the Trini Lopez from the 60s. Like that's I only like that guitar. They said, okay, well, we'll do that inspired by thing, whatever. They said, what color? And my favorite color, it's called Pelham Blue. And I'll tell you why. They used it years ago, limited editions, they used it years ago, but they all age differently, right? So it depends. If you leave it in the case forever, you open it up, it looks brand new. If you fucking take it in the sun and you play it, you sweat on it, and fucking like really use it, it changes. Like it turns green, it cracks. And that to me is beauty. Like I think that things, I like growing old. Like I like all the weird fucking lines and my teeth and like this. I think it's fucking cool because that means you're living your fucking life. So when I see those blue guitars, the old ones, they just age in this way that it's like they become more and more beautiful the more and more fucked up they get. That to me is fucking beauty. So that's what those guitars are.
And about the Black Tama of where you recorded the Nevermind album.
Oh, the
Terminator one.
The Terminator. Well, actually, you know, when we made the record Nevermind, nobody took pictures. It's before the fucking iPhone, whatever. I have one picture from when we made that record, just one. And it's at my studio. It's on the soundboard. And it's just a picture of my drum set. It had maybe 7 microphones, that's it. And it was this old yellow drum set. It was a yellow Tama drum set. It was a drum set that I bought when I was a teenager. I used to paint houses for money, you know?
Wow.
And I painted this fucking house and I got $700 and just went straight and bought this yellow drum set. Like the ugliest fucking drum set. It looked like lemonade. It was just so fucking stupid, but it sounded amazing. And then over time, Kurt would always like fucking smash it, you know? He'd like smash his guitar, jump into it and smash it. So everything was destroyed except for one, like the one floor tom. So I still have the one floor tom. But you know the coolest thing? Here's a good story. Well, whatever. When I was young, I grew up in this house. There was a tree outside of my window. I used to climb this tree every fucking day. My best friend when I was young, he became a carpenter. He started making, like, he was a woodworker. Then he started becoming like an artist. He would make beautiful things with wood. 3 years ago, they had to cut down that tree. And he fucking saved a bunch of the wood. And he made me a beautiful snare drum. Wow. And so now I have this snare drum that is the wood from the tree I used to climb when I was a child.
Wow, how cool. Oh. Hey, wow.
So beautiful.
They're telling me our time is over, and I just want to thank you. What can I say? I have like 70 questions, and I'm not joking.
We have to do it again. We got to do it again sometime.
Please. Okay. Dave, thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.
I'll see you soon. All right. It's good to talk to you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.